Welcome to Dan the Road Trip Guy. I'm your host, Dan, and each week we'll embark on a new adventure, discovering memory and life lessons of our incredible guests. From everyday travelers to thrill seekers and everyone in between, this podcast is your front row seat to inspiring stories of passion, resilience, and the pursuit of happiness. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. I am on a virtual road trip today with a gentleman I have never met in person. We've talked on the phone. We've communicated through email. He lives in a neighborhood where my wife and I raised our children for about 15 years. We don't live there any longer, but we connected through an email list there with a guest I had on the show. His name is JT Harp, and JT spent his time as a career at Kroger, and now he has gone on to help small businesses sell their businesses as a business broker. I would assume he helps people buy them too, and we'll find that out from him. But I'm excited to talk to him and get to know him a little bit. So welcome to the show, JT.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to our time today.
Well, this is Dan the Road Trip Guy, and really nobody comes on the show unless they answer my first two questions before we get to the rest, and that is, tell me about your first car.
Yeah, so I've got a good story about that one. I had just turned 16. I just got my permit that day. My dad at the time worked pretty late, so he didn't get home till around 10 or 10:30. Yes, I was excited about having my permit and of course driving, but I was pretty much ready for bed. My dad came home, congratulated me on getting my permit, and he said, "All right, let's go. We're going out driving." And I said, "Really? This late?" He's like, "Yep, let's do it. Let's do it. It's a big day." 1989 Chevy Blazer.
Okay.
We pulled out of the driveway. Drove south down State Route 104, just outside of the farm there where I grew up. About a mile or two down the road, we turned onto a local township road. And about a mile into that little jaunt, slam, a giant buck hit us broadside right on my driver's side mirror door area. Scared the you-know-what out of both of us.
Sure.
I saw him briefly. My dad didn't see him at all. So, he screamed a couple of choice words and basically said, "What in the hell was that?" Of course, I said, I thought it was a deer. So we pulled over. I guess at that point, we're already stopped and we assessed the damage. We never saw the deer again, but the car ended up being totaled.
Oh, my goodness.
And that was my very first time behind the wheel on my permit. So there you go.
Wow. That's quite a story. Now, tell me you haven't hit any or been hit by any deer since.
No, I have not been hit by any deer since, but my wife was actually just last year, same thing, hit by a deer, driver's side. Didn't total the car, thankfully, but obviously put kind of a scare into her. Yeah, hopefully those two instances are the last two.
Yeah. And I assume you got in another car shortly after that.
I did, yeah. I transitioned to an S15 GMC pickup.
Okay.
And so I had that for most of my, we'll call it my high school career, and then graduated to a few other cars after that, including a couple stick shifts. So I did want to mention that. I'm proud to say that at a couple times in my life, I did proudly drive a stick shift, and boy, were those a lot of fun. I'm not even sure if we can get them anymore.
Yeah, they're hard to come by, but yeah, I grew up driving those and they're a blast. Tell me about an epic road trip, one that just stands out in your mind as a great memory.
Yeah, I guess I'm lucky enough. I've had several. Senior trip after high school, my buddies and I road trip down to Myrtle Beach with a bunch of classmates. That was fun. Taken 2 or 3 road trips down to Florida over the years, mainly with just friends or, my girlfriend, now wife. 2 trips down to South Padre Island from the Ohio State during college for spring break. And then we have spent some time in our career and our lives up in Michigan. So we've been fortunate enough to road trip a couple times up to northern Michigan with friends and extended family. And then my wife and I one time took an extended trip up to the UP, which was a lot of fun. So fortunately, no crazy stories like the deer broadsiding incidents that we've mentioned already. But, obviously just some really good times and some great memories with friends and family behind the wheel.
Yeah, well, you had your fill of fun with that buck, so that's okay.
Yeah, and speaking of cars and just life in general, I'll say that, on a side note, we haven't gotten into family yet, but My oldest just started driving a couple months ago. So that's, a whole new phase of life for Kendi and I. Kendi's my wife.
Sure.
And so, he's a great kid, responsible driver, certainly no issues or concerns there. But I'll just say some of the best and highest quality time you can spend with your kids is in the car.
Absolutely.
And I've read some psychology around, when you're talking with anyone, but perhaps especially your children, doors do tend to open up and walls do start to come down a bit when you're in the car, versus maybe sitting across from them. And I think there's something psychologically around the dynamic of, either facing the same direction and, like I've said, not being face to face, and then maybe the dynamic of just being in a different row, not right next to them, perhaps, especially when they're younger. I think that all equates to, the conversation maybe being a little less intimidating, more informal, more casual. And that time is a great time to really bond with your kids, whether you're heading to the soccer game or to and from school. It's a great environment for great conversation. So I say all that to say that, basically, at the end of May, essentially overnight, that time with my oldest is pretty much gone, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a big deal for us. And yes, it's great to have him driving. He loves his independence, and of course, it's helped out, Kendi and I with a ton of less, shuttling around between him and his brothers. But that's a tough life transition because I'm starting to already miss, that time with him.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to plan some road trips, and a crazy thing. This whole podcast started because of a road trip a little over 3 years ago with my oldest, who I guess she would have been about 30 at the time when she and I road tripped to Florida. And she goes, "Let's start your podcast now." And that's when we started. So yeah, I would agree with you. Nothing beats, we call it windshield time.
That's right. That's right. Very good.
Well, cool. And I usually ask people for advice at the end, but that's great advice to parents with kids.
Well, I've got some more for you at the end of the call if we have time. So
Cool. Well, we'll find time. So take me on your career journey. I know you worked at Kroger, and now you told me you're a business broker. But take me on that journey. What took you to Kroger and beyond?
sure. I'm a proud Terrace Park, Ohio resident, husband and father to 4 amazing boys, born and raised on a farm just outside of Chillicothe, Ohio. So that's about an hour and a half here from Cincinnati and about an hour directly south of Columbus. Great quality of life, being born and raised on a farm, strong work ethic at an early age, and just made a lot of, close friends there growing up and going to high school there in Ross County. I am a proud alumni of the national football champion, Ohio State Buckeyes.
Oh, there you
And
go.
I can say that for a few more days here until the season starts, and hopefully we can run it back, but we'll see. But yeah, I'm from the Ohio State, and I then went on to well, actually, I should take a step back. I did start at Kroger when I was in high school, and just for whatever reason, I always loved going to the grocery store with my mom. Looked forward to it every week. Organized the groceries in her cart. Tried to guess what the bill was going to be added up to. Just really fascinated by the whole industry for whatever reason at a really young age. Begged and begged and begged for the local grocery store to hire me shortly after I turned 16. And of course, that was after I hit the deer and after I got into my second car. And got the job and was a bagger for a couple years in high school, then transferred up to a store in Columbus when I went to the Ohio State, worked my way through college, and then just, again, continued to love it and graduated from Ohio State on a Friday, went into management training on a Monday, and then just for the next really, 25, 30 years, climbed the corporate ladder at Kroger,
Hmm.
ended up in various senior leadership roles with the company, moved my family a total of 9 times, really ran hard and ran fast and loved it. And I thought, I was pretty good at it. Then after about, 30 years or so, kind of thought it was time to maybe get out of the Kroger bubble and do something a little bit differently. Decided to take another leadership opportunity at a company called Bimart, which is headquartered out in Eugene, Oregon. I was chief operating officer out there for about a year or so, and then just decided that probably wasn't the best fit for me or my family out in Oregon. Actually, great people, good culture, a lot to do out there, but it just really wasn't the Midwest, not what we're used to, and really just kind of wanted to get back home closer to friends and family. And had always had a bit of an entrepreneurial itch. Networked with some folks with Transworld. Transworld is the world's largest business brokerage firm. We have offices in, I think, 28 countries now, with almost 1,000 brokers in the network. And it's a loose franchise model to where, I pay in for the franchise agreement. I agree to a royalty every month. And in turn, they provide me the branding, a CRM, training,
Hmm.
and a website to start off with. Outside of that, totally on my own, 100% entrepreneurial, which is really what I was looking for. I've been a corporate guy, senior leadership guy with a lot of responsibility from a people and profit loss standpoint for a lot of years, and really just kind of wanted to get out on my own full time. And so Transworld enabled me to do that. And now we're here, right here locally in Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, helping our small business owners confidentially sell. At a high level, that's kind of where I'm from, who I am, and how I got to be where I am today, career wise.
Yeah, I'll jump to the business broker in a moment, but was there one particular position or job at Kroger that, you just woke up every morning going, I just love doing this?
All of them. I loved it
All of
all.
them. Yeah,
Yeah. Love the company, love the people I worked with, love the impact that I knew I was making, in a positive way, both on our culture and in our employees and our associates and our customers. Did had pretty balanced experience across both operations and merchandising, across all the different stops and leadership focus areas I had. But that seems like kind of a cop out answer, but it's the truth.
no?
Loved every minute of it, and wouldn't have changed it for anything.
Hmm. So one particular section of the store that you're more passionate about, you mentioned merchandising.
Yeah, I'd say probably center store. That's where the bulk of our sales are. And when I
Okay,
say center store, that's your dry grocery goods, your dairy, your frozen departments, those types of areas. When I
sure.
was in merchandising, I spent most of my time there. I just love to sell. There's a lot of volume, a lot of movement, a lot of innovation in that space, and that got me most excited.
I ask you those questions because I went to work at 9 years old in the family grocery store that my grandparents started. Now, we were a small country store, but we did we moved a lot of stuff through there, and we had
Yeah,
everything, feed, seed, and hay and straw and everything in between. I worked there through college, and just recently my cousin decided he was going to sell. So after a lot of years, Anderson's Grocery went away. But
yeah. Well, it's fun. It's fun to sell, isn't it?
it
It really is.
is. I did a lot, but I was in charge of the soft drink section, so I always had it
There you go.
looking good and making deals.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
And really just to segue our conversation, that you had mentioned the sale of the business. I could kind of hear it in your voice that it's a very emotional life event, is it not?
It certainly was, because most every trip I would make back home, my uncle was running it. By then, my cousin, his son was there, and every trip back home would be, okay, now you're coming back after college, right? And take over. I didn't. And there's been times, yeah, it's like, I was always had pen to paper trying to figure out, okay, could I do this part-time from Cincinnati and go down 2 or 3 days a week? But
Yeah.
yeah, so that takes us to the business broker. Being a business broker, I'm sure you are faced with a lot of emotions when people are starting to sell their business.
Yeah, 100%. To that degree, I lived it. My wife and I owned a couple small businesses in Columbus for a few years, while I was in corporate. And when the pandemic hit, we just decided to peel those off, and it was going okay. It scratched a little bit of an entrepreneurial itch we both had, but we weren't there to run them full time, and we were running them remote, and it was really difficult. And I learned very quickly, quite frankly, how hard it is to be a small business owner.
Mm,
Obviously, very rewarding, but extremely challenging and difficult. That's what kind of called me to Transworld, as I got to know the Transworld culture and the people and the leadership more and more, since I sold those other businesses off. And as I was planning my corporate exit, to some degree, I was looking at possibly buying another business, most likely through Transworld's network. But as I got to know the Transworld team, I really thought that, this was going to be a great fit for me personally. And it just so happened that the greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky territories were wide open. And so it checked a lot of boxes for me to get back, to give back, if you will, get back to Southern Ohio and really give back to the small business community. You and I've
sure.
kind of already touched on it through your story, but yeah, I mean, we love our business owners. It's a very emotional time when it's time to either need or want to sell. A lot of business brokers, or excuse me, a lot of business owners don't know who to turn to. They have to or need to keep things confidential, but they also need or want to exit. Those are the voids that Transworld fills, and those are the services, the value adds that we provide. We've got over 625,000 buyers in our network. We've got a process and system in place to reach all of those buyers and keep things confidential. We help our business owners navigate those emotions that you and I have already touched on. We execute in a way that gets us to the closing table at a fair valuation, so that way Mr. and or Mrs. Business Owner can either finally retire, or go off and do what they would like to do within another business, simplify life a bit, perhaps purchase another business. Every deal's different, every situation's different, and when the time comes, we're here for them. And
Yeah.
yes, it can be very emotional, really, on both sides of the table, because it sounds a little cheesy, but I firmly believe that we are fulfilling dreams.
Sure.
We are getting our business owners on to that next chapter of life. And, for that buyer, no different than myself a year or so ago, perhaps that buyer's always wanted to run his or her own business and be their own boss and break away from corporate and, kind of quote, unplug from the matrix, if you will. And so we're able to provide that for both sides. I got to tell you, I love selling groceries. I was really good at it. I truly love what we do now because we're making a difference.
That's so neat to hear. And do people come looking for you, or do you go looking for them as business owners?
At the beginning, as we were building awareness and building our brand and establishing ourselves here in the tri-state area, we were doing more looking for them, so to speak. Doing some branding and some marketing and some networking and doing some cold calls and that sort of thing. And we still do a lot of that as we continue to build our team and build our brand. But now I would say that out of all of our 65 local businesses that we currently have for sale, over half of those are now from referrals. We've successfully transacted just under 40 transactions in the last year and a half or so. And so now, because we are owner first, because we are people first, because of our foundation of confidentiality and truly working hard for both sides, I'd like to think, and it's kind of proving out, that our reputation's preceding us, word is spreading. And, when the time is right, we're getting a lot of referrals now for that business owner that's reached out to, their attorney, their financial advisor, their real estate agent, their friend, to say, yeah, you know what, I think it's time to sell. Do you know someone that can help me? And the goal would be, for that other individual to say, you know what, absolutely, I've got a guy, and his name's JT, and he works with Transworld, and I'll give you his number, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what's kind of happening now, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, that is cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. What's on your bucket list in life? Anything?
Yes and no. Again, not to be a cop out, but I've never really had a bucket list.
Okay.
I feel like I'm living my bucket list daily, honestly. I've got a rock solid foundation, a home. I've got happy and healthy spouse and kids and extended family. I've got work that's meaningful and that inspires me and fills me up every day. And that's honestly, Dan, all the result of a combination of complete luck and earned equity. And I will never take that for granted. So, where I'm at in my phase of life, I'm just enjoying where I am. Don't have any major bucket list items now. That may change in the next 20, 30, 40 years. But for now, I'm appreciative of where I am.
Excellent. Well, you know what? That's a good bucket list item. So we'll go with that. Here's a question for you. Imagine today you could take a road trip. You're heading out, and you could go with anyone, living or deceased. Who would it be? Where would you go? And what do you think you'd talk about?
Yeah, that's an easy one for me. That's my grandparents. I knew my dad's parents pretty well. They live just north of Columbus, and I was very fortunate throughout my youth to have known and spent time with them growing up. Unfortunately, didn't know my mom's parents very well. My grandpa died before I was born on that side, and my grandma had Parkinson's. And she just really did not have a great quality of life for the last 10 years or so of her life, which is pretty much all I knew of her. And so in general, I just, our society now lives a life of abundance, and that definitely has its benefits, but psychologically, it also has its pitfalls. And, really, Dan, just 2 generations ago, And for, of course, thousands of generations before that, their life was all about scarcity and struggle. And I think that having a strong and clear appreciation for who we are personally, a strong appreciation for all the struggle that our parents and grandparents and great grandparents lived through just to set us up for opportunities that we have now, and the high quality life that we have now and that we enjoy. I just think having a stronger understanding of who my grandparents were and what they went through, and being able to appreciate that is a healthy way to go about life. And of course, on top of that too, even the set of grandparents that I did know and appreciated and loved for all those years, now that you're older, we've got some life experience. We've certainly got more wisdom than we did 30 to 40 years ago. My questions that I asked my grandparents then would certainly be different than if I could take a road trip and ask them, different questions now, based on my own life experience. So I would love to pack all four of my grandparents in a car and just, circle the globe with them and just download everything they've been through, and just try to learn as much as I could from them.
Wow, that's excellent. And yeah, I can resonate with you there. After my parents died, and I only had really one grandparent, a grandma. And as you said, I look back now and it's like, okay, these are the questions I wish I had asked back. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, that's great. Well, hey, let's move on to your business owner now. You spent years with Kroger. If you could give a little bit of life advice to somebody on how to live a good life, what would that be?
I love these questions, and thankfully, because of what I've been through, I'll call it really the last, especially 3 to 5 years, but perhaps beyond that, I hopefully I've got some good answers here for you. I've got really just a couple main points and then a couple quotes to wrap us up, if
Okay.
that's okay. So,
Yeah, perfect.
the first one, as I think through this, I mentioned earlier that we don't live in a society of scarcity anymore, but rather one of abundance. And if I had to choose one, I'd certainly rather choose the latter. But I think what that's doing to us is it's creating a whole new level of issues that for us as humans, we're just not wired to handle. I say all that to say, towards the end of my corporate journey, I was in this paradox of where I was really darn good at what I was doing, but for a variety of reasons, I just didn't love it anymore.
Hmm.
And I was silently suffering inside. And part of the reason I was suffering is because I didn't know it at the time, but I look back now and I realized that my job and my title and what I did for a living had become who I was.
Hmm.
And so, you'd go to an event, or you'd go to a family function, you'd go to whatever, and you'd see anybody. Oh yeah, hey JT, you're the Kroger guy. You're the Kroger guy. How you doing? How's Kroger? And so, for a while that was great. And then, again, I didn't realize at the time, but I let my job turn into my identity.
Sure.
And that's a dangerous place to be. And even beyond that, during my time at corporate, I'd always had, as we kind of already touched on, a real deep meaning in my work, which for most of us, aspirational folks, is very foundational. But at some point a few years ago, I lost that connection to the meaning and the purpose of my true work. And that's when I knew it was time to make a change.
Hmm.
And so, and even beyond that, I'm very time conscious. My kids are getting older, and I wanted and felt like I'd earned at that point the freedom to still earn a great living, still truly help people, and yet spend my days how I wanted to spend them, and perhaps not selling groceries anymore. Right.
Right.
So I would just say, to wrap up that thought, for any of our listeners out there that are feeling a bit lost, a bit empty, a bit unfulfilled, if you have the intestinal fortitude, if you have the means, if you have the support at home to make a change, you should seriously think about it, because if you're willing to take the risk and you're willing to work hard enough to reinvent yourself and find something more meaningful in your real work, I can almost guarantee you it's going to be worth it.
Hmm. That is great advice. And, it made me think about when you meet somebody on the street, or, you're at a party or wherever you are, usually the first question is, oh, what do you do?
That's exactly
And
right.
And
Yeah.
I've kind of changed mine ever since this podcast started. And I was doing it before that. But my typical now is, well, so what's your story? But
Yeah.
thank you for that. That was great.
I'm the exact same way. I don't ask that question anymore. In fact, I've got people now in my network that I've known for a year or so at least, and I still not 100% sure what they do for a career and work, and I think that's okay because
Yeah.
I still feel like I know them as a person.
Yeah. Yeah. What else do you have
So
for us?
yeah. Second thing, I keep mentioning abundance. The other point I'd like to make is just our abundance mentality and our society's concern with outside motivation, and it's really all around social media. I'm really worried about what social media is doing to us. A lot of people, when they don't have a good sense of their true meaning, they turn to hedonism and empty pleasures and time wasting, and too often, we're finding that now on our phones. And I think this
Absolutely.
the social media and the cell phone dynamic, the smartphone dynamic is the peak of abundance. And I think to a large degree it's ruining us. I just want to ask again, anyone out there listening, just think for a second about the relationship you have with your phone. And so if you think about you and your phone, I have one really big question for you, and then a couple follow-ups. But the big question is, so between you and your phone, which one is the slave and which one is the master?
Good question.
If you can't sit at the light in your car for 30 seconds and not scroll on your phone, you might have your answer.
You may very well.
If you get anxious when you're in a room or in a setting and you don't have your phone with you or on you or next to you, you may have your answer. When you can't have a great meal with someone and just talk without looking at your gosh dang phone, you may have your answer. And look, Dan, I'm not trying to be preachy. I'm only sharing this because I'm right there with the rest of you. But, I got to tell you, I'm just life's passing us by. As humans, we're just not wired for constant stimulation, constant hits of dopamine. That's not in us to manage all that. We're supposed to be bored. That's where the
Absolutely.
best
Yeah.
idea that's where the best ideas come from. That's where our deepest, richest thoughts, our rawest emotions come from, is when we're bored and we have time. And if we're constantly seeking that stimulation, those dopamine hits from the stinking phones, then we're miserable, whether we know it or not. And you can kind of see it in kids. If we let our kids on screens for hours or days at a time because of whatever reason, and then they unplug, you just watch their mood swings.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating and it's scary and it's sad, but unfortunately, in my opinion, we're too far along as a society into the hole. We gotta figure that out. We got to figure that out as individuals, and we got to figure that out as a society, because I firmly believe these screens are ruining us. We got to get
I
unplugged.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. And, I think back to my children. They're 33 and 30 now. They didn't grow up with them. And often you would see them out under a pine tree building a fort. Yeah. And my biggest concern with all this today is this real or is this fake? Because now I've got to go figure out if it's real or fake. And I'm going to spend time doing that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
all these topics we could spend a whole nother lengthy podcast on, but I think they're worth at least bringing up and thinking through.
We might start a new podcast, me and you, the anti-mobile social media podcast or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I got one more for you.
Okay,
Um,
go.
our ancestors survived by moving, and I mean, physically being active. And we now live in this abundance society where, in general, we as humans, at least in this society, in this country, a lot of countries, are able to survive and often thrive living a sedentary lifestyle. And
Yes.
for a lot of us, we know deep down we should be working out, we should be eating better, we should be more active, but we always try or tend to find reasons not to. And I got to tell you, Dan, I found my routine and I found the gym about 5 years ago. Now, I'd
Okay.
always, throughout my youth and throughout my 30s, I'd hit the gym every now and then, and I'd play some basketball and I'd ride my bike and I would do some of those things, but I'd never had a constant, consistent routine. The gym saved me. I go to the gym now not just for my physical health, but honestly more for my mental health.
Sure.
And, when I'm at the gym or when I'm playing basketball, I'm there, I would say, 15% for the physical benefits. I'd say probably, 15% for the social benefits, but I'd say about 70% for the mental because
Yeah.
I'm not just stretching or running or lifting. I am processing. I'm getting through my thoughts. I'm honestly, Dan, I'm healing from the suffering and the burdens of life. And the
Yeah,
gym is
absolutely.
now my sanctuary.
Yeah.
It's my sanctuary. I can't function without it. And I strongly believe that for all of us that, again, may be down, maybe kind of in a pit, maybe in a valley and are trying to get out, just get moving. Find a routine, find your tribe, find something you like to do and that can get you moving. Pretty much guarantee you, you're going to have a better life and you're certainly going to have a longer and healthier and more rewarding life because of it. And that's
Yeah.
just what I've found over the last, we'll call it 5 years. And I don't intend to stop now. It is who I am and it is my sanctuary.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That was great advice here. And our trip's kind of coming to the end, but I never like to leave without my guest telling people how to find them. And particularly for you, you're a business owner. How do people find you if they want to sell their business?
Yeah, well, we try to make it really, really easy to find us. So you can call me anytime, 513 or you can text me at that number as well. You can email me at jharp@tworld.com. That's jharp@tworld.com.
Okay.
Of course, you can find us on the internet. Just look us up at Transworld Business Advisors of Cincinnati. You can look at all of our listings and learn a lot about how we can help you as a business owner get you to your next chapter of life. We are also on YouTube. We are on all of the major social media platforms, and we are here to help. So there's a team of 8 of us now. We are all local here to greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, and we would love to chat with you. So please reach out,
Excellent.
talk to us about anything small business related or otherwise. We'd love to hear from you.
Well, JT, we didn't know each other before this started, but I feel like I know you a little better. And now I kind of feel like I want to meet up and have a cup of coffee or something. I don't drink coffee, but we meet at a coffee place anyway.
Yeah, let's do that. I don't drink coffee either, but I've become a fan of chai tea lattes. So if you'd
Okay.
like to have one of those with me, let's share a chai tea latte here in the near future.
Well, again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate you. It was fun.
Thank you for tuning in to Dan, the Road Trip Guy. I hope you enjoyed our journey today and the stories that were shared. If you have any thoughts or questions or stories of your own, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. Don't forget to share this podcast with your friends and family and help us to spread the joy of road trips and great conversations. Until next time, keep driving, keep exploring, and keep having those amazing conversations. Safe travels. And remember, you can find me on the internet at dantheroadtripguy.com.